and welcome. It seems fairly obvious that libraries would purchase materials with LGBTQ content, as it is a library's duty to have a well-rounded collection. But the reality is that many libraries are not doing enough to provide adequate representation for this community. Despite the fact that times have changed and the world is more accepting of the LGBTQ community, there are a number of reasons why librarians might justify not purchasing materials. However, having an inadequate collection is nothing but a disservice to the library patrons. It is difficult to put out a blanket statement that says all libraries are failing, because studies in different regions all show different results. A study of Alabama libraries in the Bible Belt area discovered that the LGBTQ holdings were not as restrictive as expected. Yet another study in an unidentified southern state revealed LGBTQ materials in 125 high schools only made up 0.4% of the collection. The overall feeling of studies, though, is that there are large discrepancies in representation of LGBTQ materials in public and school libraries. To make matters worse, ALA's Office of Intellectual Freedom reported in 2018 that over the last 2 years, half or more of the books being challenged are due to LGBTQ themes, and that displays and programs are equally being censored. More surprising in the report is that supervisors and administrators are also displaying self-censorship to avoid conflict with the community. There are a number of ways that librarians can end up self-censoring, whether it is a conscious or unconscious act. Fear of backlash or judgment is one such way. Hearing stories like how the Orange County Public Library in Iowa was faced with a petition demanding that LGBTQ books be labeled and separated from the general collection, and then a few months later an activist checked out and burned at least 4 LGBTQ-themed children's books, is enough to have librarians worrying about how these books will be accepted in the community. However, letting those potential opinions or your own prejudices affect the selection process crosses an ethical line and does a disservice to the community by creating an unbalanced collection. Another trap is the belief that it's hard to find LGBTQ materials. While they might not be reviewed as frequently in typical journals, it is the librarian's duty to find alternative sources. Multiple articles suggested looking at the Lambda Literary Foundation, which has its own print publication, online reviews, and awards for books with LGBTQ materials, as well as the ALA's Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Roundtable. Other resources include the Stonewall Book Awards, the Rainbow Book List for Youths, and Over the Rainbow Books for Adults. One misconception is there are no LGBTQ people in the community. In 2013, between 3 and 10% of the community identified as LGBTQ. While some might argue that's not a large enough percentage to warrant a developed collection, only 2.6% of the population is bipolar, yet libraries have materials on that subject without question. Regardless of the percentage, libraries still have a duty to carry materials that represent and inform users of these topics. Similar to the perceived lack of need, librarians might look at circulation stats and see low numbers, leading them to believe that the books are not circulating. Due to the sensitive nature of these materials, patrons might not check them out for fear of judgment or even being outed as homosexual. But that does not mean the books are not being used. Rather than checking books out, patrons might simply read them in the library. The point of all of this is that there really is no excuse for libraries not to have LGBTQ materials. Given the library's responsibility to keep the patrons informed and meet their information needs, it is essential that libraries have a developed collection. The need for LGBTQ materials is particularly important to young adults who are struggling with their identity. Multiple reports reflected on the fact that LGBTQ teens are more prone to bullying and suicide, while the Pew Research Center discovered that the majority of LGBTQ adults became certain of their sexual identity between the ages of 10 and 19. If teens are questioning things, they are likely to turn to books to find their answers and a sense of acceptance. Reading someone else's story can give these teens someone they can relate to. At the same time, even heterosexual teens can benefit from these examples as books promote acceptance. Much like how circulation statistics might not be reflected in usage, teens might not come and request materials due to fear of judgment or simple embarrassment. The library, though, should still provide the materials for the patrons. School libraries face another hurdle, as they might be restricted to ordering for the curriculum. However, these libraries might be the teens' only access to materials. And as Sandra Hughes Hassel puts it, school libraries must expand their collection beyond curricular-related materials to include resources that address teens' social, emotional, physical, and sexual needs. Ordering the books and making them available is only half the battle. Next, the library has to consider how to manage the collection and make sure patrons know they're available. Certain libraries have stickers to label the books or have them in a special collection. One library had a challenged book behind the counter that patrons needed to request. Requiring patrons to ask for these materials or having the book separate risks patrons' privacy, especially if the patrons are not open about their sexual identity. At the same time, having books separate or under lock and key sends a message that there is something wrong with these books and the people who read them, a message that no library wants to send to its patrons. While libraries might not want to draw attention to the collection, it is important that the books are properly labeled in the computer. A study of books in 125 different high schools discovered that a number of the books considered essential LGBTQ materials did not feature representative subject headings, while other books were mislabeled. If patrons don't want to approach a librarian asking them for materials because of the sensitive nature, they should be able to go to the OPAC and find them with a proper search. Being a part of the LGBT community is not easy. As Anthony Aycock puts it, when historians look back at the 21st century, I think they will see the LGBT plus struggles as our era's civil rights movements. As libraries are a primary source of information for all people, it is essential that librarians do their part to be proactive in making sure the LGBTQ community is represented in the stacks and can have their information needs met. Thank you.